Jam tracks and Munson Music Live, and going to talk about a little bit of things that you could say over an A7 or A dominant 7 chord. And we'll start with kind of some easy scales to kind of practice through, to kind of say some things with it, and then we'll get more and more chord specific through the video. But if you're on an A7 chord, you could kind of use one of two pentatonic scales, and actually this could be kind of cool. If you wanted things to sound really happy, you'd want to start with an A major pentatonic scale. So you kind of take your pinky and kind of line them up for the A note on the low E string on the 5th fret, and that's where your first pattern would kind of set up. So we'd have kind of F sharps, A's, and B's, and C sharps, and then we'd have E's and F sharps, and then A's and B's, and C sharps, and E's, and F sharps, and A's. Ideas you could kind of use in that scale too. You could play around with hammer-ons or pull-offs. To kind of say some technical things, or slides can be cool. Or you could try bends through the scale. Stop ideas. So now I'm kind of playing two notes at the same time, kind of stealing a little violin turn. So that might be kind of cool, just kind of play around with technical ideas. Or you could do rhythm ideas, kind of an 8th note idea, or 2 on each note. That'd be kind of a cool idea to play around with. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Try 3s, kind of switch to triplets, that can always be cool. Or you can try 4s. So there's a lot of different rhythm ideas you can kind of take and kind of play around with through the scale. You can do other numbers too, you kind of feel like it. Or some other ways to kind of organize the scale. There's one of my favorite ways, actually, something called patterns of 3, where you kind of go up 3 notes in the scale and then go back a note and do another 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, back a note, 1, 2, 3, back a note, back a note. 1, 2, 3. So you kind of organize the scale in groups of 3s. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Or you can do groups of 4s, which would be cool. Kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you end up kind of dropping a string. 1, 2, 3, 4, and back to the A on the 2nd. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to the A on the 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to weird, but I like them. Some things I call one note per string patterns, where you kind of think about first note of the scale on the second fret, and then the second note of the scale kind of being that 5, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5. And you can make a rule for yourself. I'm just going to play one note on every string. So you could play all the first fret notes, or the first finger notes, all second fret, right? Kind of in that A major pentatonic. Or you could try all the second notes straight across, just playing one note on each string. Or you could mix them up. I kind of do first note, second note, first note, second note, first note, second note. And kind of work it as kind of almost a little diagonal idea. Or you could do a 2-1. Side. So it might be kind of cool just to work some skips in the pattern. Or something else you may want to play around with is kind of one note per string ideas, but in groups of 3 strings, which is kind of weird. But you could do first note, second note, and then first note, and then go back to the A, first note, second note, first note, back to the D, first note, second note, first note, back to the G, first note, second note, first note. So it's kind of a 1-2-1 idea. Might be a cool lick idea. Or you could do 2-1-2, right? Kind of 2-1-2, 2-1-2, 2-1-2, 2-1-2. Kind of get some skips. Or you could do 1-1-2, 1-1-2, 1-1-2, 1-1-2, 1-1-2. Or you could do 2-2-1. You may want to kind of play around with a lot of different kind of grammatical ideas, technical ideas to kind of jam over the chord with that scale. Or the cool thing about a dominant 7 a lot of times is it's really kind of already messed up. Okay, it's got the tritone in it, and so things sound kind of nasty on an A7 chord in general. So instead of playing over with a major pentatonic, you may also want to play around with a minor pentatonic scale. So if you took your first finger and lined it up to that A on the low E string on the 5th fret, we could kind of work that same pattern we were just doing, but now working 5th fret to 8th fret. You can kind of start it off. So you have 5-8, 5-7, 5-7, 5-7, 5-8, 5-8. Same scale, different place, and all of a sudden we get more of a bluesy kind of sound over that chord. Actually on the what we would call the flat third of the chord, or kind of that 8th fret on the high E string, you can almost kind of take that C note and bend it into the C sharp note that's actually part of the chord. So it's kind of a flat 3-3 kind of an idea, or blues third kind of deal. So that's a very effective lick. Kind of working that 8th fret bend back to the A, because it matches a little piece of the chord, but then a little piece of the minor pentatonic. So that would be kind of cool. And you can get that same kind of sound from the G on the 5th fret, kind of working that as your bend, and then going kind of, well, yeah, I'm going to the D on the 7. Which can be kind of cool. Or randomly, actually, a lot of times in blues, you'll just take that note, and instead of doing the bend, you may want to put a hammer on into that note. So I'm doing 5th fret on the G, hammer on the 6th, and then end it on an A note. Which is a cool lick to just have over A7s in general. Or you could kind of take that same idea, that hammer on, and then play the high E on the 5th for an A note. Or you could go low E on the 5th. It's almost kind of that same idea. Kind of having your bag of tricks too. Kind of working minor pentatonic scales over the A7. Or we could get really more scale specific actually. And normally the 7 chord only happens in one place in a major scale. And what a major scale is kind of your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Randomly, if you saw an A7 chord, you're really in the key of D, because the 5-7 chord that we're playing, the A7 chord, only happens on the 5th chord in a key. So if D was number 1, D, E, F, G, A is the 7 or the 5, and it becomes a dominant 7. So if you're in an A7 chord, you're really in the key of D major. So you could use a D major scale to solo over this chord too. There's lots of ways to kind of work a major scale. One of my favorite patterns for a major is something I call the stretch pattern. So you could kind of take the low E on the 10th fret, kind of that D note to start on, and we'd have 10, 12, 14, and then we'd go to the A string, 10, 12, 14, and then we go to the D string with 11, 12, 14, and then G string with 11, 12, 14, and then B string with 12, 14, 15, and then high E with 12, 14, 15. It's kind of your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale, kind of that D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, and then the B, C sharp, D, and then the E, F sharp, G. So you could even take those lick ideas that we were doing in the other scales and then try it through the major scale, kind of working that spot. Kind of cool to mix it up and kind of see what you can say with it too. However, normally with that scale, you can also use that scale as kind of a ruler to measure off other scales. So you could think about the D as number 1 and kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 note scale. And then we kind of start over again. Kind of that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it was kind of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do kind of becomes in your mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can make adjustments to that ruler to make other scales. And what's a little weird about using kind of this A7 chord to jam over is even though we're using a D major scale, you're really going to hear A as kind of a home bass note in that scale. So the 5 of the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, becomes home bass. So it's a little weird, and this is relating to something called modes of major, where you're using a major scale, but you don't really always come back to the D, right? Where we're coming back to the A. So we could even use that ruler that we were just using on an A note to see what we're kind of doing shape-wise on that sound. So if you started with the A note on the low E 5th fret and used kind of those numbers with the same notes, you'd have an A and a B and a C sharp, just like the other pattern, kind of that stretch idea. And then you'd have a D and an E and an F sharp, just like the other pattern. But then we'd go to 5th fret on the D string for what we could call the flat 7. And then we'd be back to the D. And that's something called MIXOLYDIAN. It's kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. And you can even carry that through the rest of the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 6, flat 7, 1. And then you have your 2, 3, 4 at the end. So now we're kind of thinking of those same notes, actually, that we were doing in D major. But we have a new pattern called MIXOLYDIAN. So that could be another cool scale to use over that. And I think for your ear, actually, it's going to sound more like A is home bass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1, flat 7, 6, 5, 4, 5, 1, 1, 3, 5, 1, flat 7, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 6, flat 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, flat 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, flat 7, 1, 1, 5, 3, 1. So you can kind of play around with that sound. Now, there's some other scales that are modes of other scales that relate to MIXOLYDIAN too. So you could kind of make some other adjustments to MIXOLYDIAN, make things a little bit more far out if you kind of dig on this. So another possibility would be doing something called a MIXOLYDIAN and then flatten the 6. So MIXOLYDIAN flat 6. And so we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then flat the 6, kind of on that A string, 8th fret, and then we have our flat 7, 1. another adjustment to Mixolydian. A Mixolydian flat 6, flat 2 can sound very cool. So now I'd be taking our 1, taking the 2 and flatting it at the 6th fret on the low E. So we got 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1, 2, 3, another possibility is something called LYDIAN-DOMINANT, where you could kind of take the Mixolydian idea and then sharp the 4. So this might be another cool possibility. Would be the 1, 2, 3, and then sharp 4, which is also the flat 5, and then the 5, and then the 6, and then the flat 7, and then the 1. The dominant is kind of messed up too. A couple other interesting sounds I think over the top of this are some arpeggios of other chords. And you could try and use a diminished or fully diminished 7 arpeggio. And this is going to sound against the chord, but you end up in the right place. So you may want to play around with this ridiculous sound. As you could do the 1 straight to the flat 3, straight to the flat 5 or the sharp 4, and then the 6, and then back to 1. Just one of those chord arpeggios that's really kind of already messed up. So if you want things to kind of sound really out of the box, that can be a cool idea. And another possibility actually would be an augmented arpeggio. We could do the 1 to the 3 to the sharp 5, and I know that's the same thing as a flat 6, and then we'd be back to the 1. So you could kind of play around with that too, kind of just jumping from root to third to sharp 5. Actually, speaking of arpeggios, the real safe notes over an A7 chord would be notes of the chord. And the notes that actually make up the chord, actually we have an A note, and then the third is a C sharp note, and the fifth is an E note, and then we're kind of adding in the G note as kind of a flat 7. So we got A's and C sharps, E's and G's. And you could even work little arpeggios of that. You may want to try just the A major, just the root 3, 5, just to kind of see some different shapes across the guitar. And that always will work over the top of the chord, is to kind of do just a major chord arpeggio, which can be very cool. And you'll see some shapes actually that probably look very familiar to you. Kind of, especially seeing this across the fretboard, you're kind of having an A major chord kind of in root position, where you're playing A's and C sharps and E's. But if you bar it on 2nd fret, you kind of have a G shape for A's, kind of looking at big shapes here. And if you bar it on 5th fret, you have kind of an E shape for A's. And then if you kind of worked it off the D string on the 7, you'd have a D shape for A's. And then as a bar 9, you've got a C shape for A's. And then as a bar 12, you're back to kind of your A major shape. That's something a lot of people call the caged way the chords move. C shape to A shape to G shape to E shape to D shape, back to C shape. So you got an A shape, going to a G shape, going to an E shape, going to a D shape, going to a C shape, going to an A major shape, and then starting over again with a G shape, kind of working it up the neck. So that helps to think of those bigger shapes. Might be kind of cool to kind of think, oh yeah, I'm in the C place where the C is, or the D shape, or the E shape. Kind of working those notes. That might be kind of cool. And sometimes stacking up little chords can be really useful too, putting little pieces of that chord together. So if on the A major chord, if you're kind of doing the A string and the B string and the E string, kind of just the top 3 strings, or skinny 3 strings, and you're playing an A and a C sharp and an E note. And so in that position where you're stacking things up root 3, 5, that's something called a voicing for A. And if you've got A as the lowest note, that's called a root position A major. So that's kind of a root position, is doing root 3, 5. And then we could play those same notes in a different position. So you could go to the 5th fret on the E and D, 2nd finger on the G string 6th, and kind of stack them up with the C sharp, E, and then the A. So it's like a little, something we call first inversion, where we got 3, 5 root is kind of the voicing note. So we're going root 3, 5, 2, 3, 5 root. And then from there, we could almost do like a little D shape. We could work off the B string, 10th fret A, and then 9th fret on the G, 9th fret on the high E. That's kind of like a little A major chord too. So it's like a little teeny D shape. And you kind of play it in 5 root 3 is kind of the voicing for it. And then from there, things kind of start over again. So you could go to 14 on the G, B, and then 12 on the high E for another root position A. So that could be kind of cool to play around with just those little chord voicings. Root 3, 5, 3, 5 root, 5 root 3, root 3, 5. Kind of working that idea. Or you could find other places to do those voicings, kind of root 3, 5 on the D, G, and B, or 3, 5 root, or 5 root 3. Or you could find some on the A, D, and G string, root 3, 5, or 3, 5 root, or 5 root 3, or root 3, 5. Or you could work the E, A, and D string and kind of find a root 3, 5, or 3, 5 root, or 5 root 3. So that'd be kind of cool to go and hunt and kind of find some little chord voicings. And you can even say some things with those chords. So the scales are kind of like your alphabet. This is almost like little words you could say. Kind of working the little chord voicings. Or since we're doing an A7 chord, we could throw in the G note for our arpeggios and kind of look at G7s across the neck. So you may want to try that root 3, 5 flat 7, and then kind of try and jump between those notes on the guitar. With and kind of add in that G as kind of the flat 7 to your chord shapes, kind of working that arpeggio idea. Or you could look for little chords that kind of have those 4 notes, getting really chord specific at this point. But you could start with our piano voicings, and these are a pain in the butt on the guitar. But you could stack it up from the A string, or the A note on the D on the 7th fret, G string on the 6th fret, 5th fret on the B, and then take the first finger to stretch to the high E on the 3rd fret. So now I'm playing root 3, 5, flat 7, and that's kind of a piano voicing. That's how a piano player would stack things up, because it's kind of skip, skip, skip on the piano, really easy on the piano. But on the guitar, these kind of become kind of a pain in the butt, but just to look at them. We got kind of that root 3, 5, flat 7, and then you can go to the 3, and then we'd have the 7. Let's see, oh yeah, the G, so we got, we'd have the 3, and then the 5, and then we'd have the flat 7, and then the root. Oh, wow, that's nasty, yeah. And then from there we'd have a 5, and a flat 7, and a root, and a 3. Try the 7, and then the root, and then the 3, and then the 5. guitar, but very cool to know. So instead of playing those chord shapes though, what we normally do is we kind of do something called a drop 2 voicing. And what that means is you're taking the second voice above the root, in this case the 5th, kind of that E note that we have on the B string, and you drop that below the chord. So then you can kind of take that A note on the D7, add in the 5th on the A string, 7, 3rd on the G string on the 6th, and take the pinky for the B string 8th fret for the flat 7. So you have kind of a 5 root 3 flat 7 voicing instead. So this work out a little bit better under the fingers normally on the guitar. So if we were going to use drop 2 voicings, our root position would start with the root on the D string, and we'd have 5 on the 5 would be on the G 7th fret, second finger on the B string 8th fret, pinky on the high 9. It looks like a little D7 chord now, but way up the neck. So we're playing root 5, 7, 3 for our voicing. And then the next drop 2 voicing would work off the A string for the 10, second finger on the D11, third finger on the G12, pinky on the high E12. Kind of a 3, 7, root 5 voicing for the A. And I love the next two actually. These are really cool. Because you could take the first finger and kind of bar over the 2nd fret for the 5 root and the 3, and then take a finger for the high E on the 3rd for your flat 7. So now we got kind of a 5 root 3 flat 7 idea. And then the last one you can kind of do a bar over the D, G, B, and E, and then add in a finger on the G6th fret for a 7, 3, 5 root voicing for A7. So that may be kind of cool just to get used to those 7 chord voicings. Root 7, root 5, 7, 3, 3, 7, root 5, 5, root 3, 7, and then 7, 3, 5 root. Now you can also try those on different strings too. So instead of just the D, G, B, and E, you could try moving them to the A, D, G, and B, kind of the middle 4 strings. So then you could work off the A on the 12, and then you'd have your root 5, 7, 3, and a little A7 chord that way. Or our next voicing would have the 3rd, and the 7, and the root, and the 5. So we'd have 3, 7, root 5. And then we'd have that one that we looked at earlier, that 5, root 3, 7. And then we'd have our 7, 3, 5 root. And we'd be back to our root 5, 7, 3. So that might be kind of cool to look at those voicings too. So we want to play around with those. Or you can take those voicings and try them on the next strings, the E, A, B, and G. So we'd have our root 5, 7, 3. And then we'd have our 3, 7, root 5. And then we'd have our 5, root 3, 7. And then we'd have our 7, 3, 5 root. So you can like kind of play around with those too. So those get a little bit muddy, but very cool. So root 5, 7, 3, 3, 7, root 5, 5 root 3, 7, and then 7, 3, 5 root. Pretty cool voicings. Or you could do something called drop 3 voicings, which get really nasty. So you could take the root 3, 5, flat 7 voicing, we're doing the piano voicing, and take the G note, and now try and drop that below the chord. And so our drop 3 voicings kind of start with that G note. You could kind of do the low E on the 3rd fret, and then kind of get the 5 on the D, root on the G, 3rd on the B string. It'd be kind of like an A slash G or an A7 slash G. So now I'm working the E string, D, G, B as kind of a combination, kind of leaving out the A string and the high E string to get that 7, 5, root 3 voicing. Or our next voicing would kind of work the root, and then we'd have our 7, and then we'd have our 3, and then we'd have our 5. So that could be kind of a cool voicing to kind of play around with too. Or our next one would work the 3rd, and then the root, and then our 5, and then our flat 7. So that could be a kind of an interesting combination to try too. Some of these sound kind of muddy with that low E on. But then from there, then our next voicing, we kind of work our 5, and then our 3. Yep, right there. And then we'd have our root, or our 5 root. Oh yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So we'd have our 5 and our 3 and our 7, and then our root. Kind of be the next drop 3. And then we'd be back to our 7, 5 root 3. So you want to kind of play around with those too. Or you could kind of take those voicings and work them on the A string to the G, B, and E. So this could be kind of interesting too. We'd have our root, and then our 7, and then our 3, and then our 5. Kind of working that voicing. Or we could have our 3, and then our root, 5, and then our flat 7. Or we could work our 5, and then have the 3rd, and then our 7, and then our root. Or we could have our 7, and then our 5, and then our root, and then our 7, or 3. Something kind of cool too. And what can also be kind of cool is to work little pieces of those chords, kind of a 7 idea, or 3 notes out of an A7 chord. So you could kind of work the 3 on the G string 6th, pinky on the B string 8th fret for the flat 7, and then the root on the high. So now it's a 3-7 root voicing. Kind of just 3 notes that kind of imply that chord. Or what can be kind of cool too is to do the 5 and then the flat 7 and the 3. Kind of like a little D7 chord shape. Or you could do the flat 7 3rd and then the 5. Which could be kind of nasty too. Or you can kind of work the root and the 3 and then the flat 7. So now I'm kind of looking for like little teeny pieces of the chord. So then you could take those voicings and then try them on the next strings. So you could try it on the D, G, and B actually, kind of that root 3 flat 7. Or you could try the 3, 5, and then the, oh yeah, 3 flat 7 root. Or you could try the 5 flat 7 3. Or you could try that flat 7 3 5. So that might be kind of cool too, to kind of work those little voicings and kind of look for spots for that too. And for the most part, actually, it can be kind of cool just to use the scales, for instance, and then throw in some of the chord stuff. Maybe a different scale. Chord. So that might be kind of a cool thing too. Or even just mix up what scale you're doing, kind of a scale changing idea. So you could start minor pentatonic, for instance. Switch it to MIXOLYDIAN. MIXOLYDIAN flat 2. Flat 6, flat 2. Minor pentatonic. Add in the major 3rd. MIXOLYDIAN. Or arpeggios. Oh, liked that. Yeah, with the flat 6. So, try those arpeggio ideas. Diminished arpeggio. Augmented. Minor pentatonic. MIXOLYDIAN. dominant. Mix it up and kind of use some mode mixture. Or taking all these ideas, actually kind of mixing them up for yourself to kind of see what you can say with the scale and with the chords. So best of luck jamming, and I hope that helped just to kind of give you some different vocabulary over the top of an A7 chord. So good luck!